Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. On this podcast, I share my journey as a developing psychic medium, as a Reiki master teacher, as an Akashic record practitioner, and anything else that's thrown my way. Join me every week. I release new episodes every Tuesday. Hello, Midler Gang. How are you? Welcome to episode 94. In this week's episode, I wanted to talk about something that came up in one of the questions from the last few weeks in regards to reincarnation. What do I believe happens after we die? And I have a lot to say about this, actually. So I was excited this question came up, and I am excited to discuss it with you here today. Today, we are episode 94. Episode 95 next week is going to be a week early, but my 2-year podcast anniversary. Holy cow, 2 years. I can't believe it. It's been an incredible journey. Time feels like it's flown by, but I'm very excited. So next week is going to be a little bit of a flashback week and going through the years, literally, before we take a break, because the next week on my actual 2-year anniversary is when I get the keys to my new place. So I will be away and moving. There will be no podcast episode that week, but I'm very excited to be in the new space and set it all up. I'm excited. And then we are getting ready to move into fall. Lots of new things happening in the fall. I am excited to share with you soon. Things will be coming, but before we jump into that, I do have one announcement. If you are interested in learning Reiki Level 1, Reiki Level 1 is all about self-healing. It's all about you. It's all about learning your own energy. We learn about chakras. We learn about how to self-Reiki. It's such a beautiful course. I really believe everybody should take Reiki Level 1 as a prerequisite to just be human. It's hard. So if you're interested in teaching Reiki, there's still a few spots left. Not very many, but there's still space in the September 25th, 26th course. If you are interested in registering, you can grab your spot on my website, themediuminthemiddle.com. I will also link down below how you can register. So that will all be there. And if you want to stay in the loop with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. We have a good time over there, always making jokes and providing extra content for you. Always a nice conversation. I love the community over on Instagram. You guys just feel like my friends, my homies, people I can talk to and share all the little experiences that happen in between these podcasts. Today I'm going to pull a card. We're going back to the OG. We're going back to the original, the Colette Baron Reid Enchanted Map Deck. And as every week, I ask the deck, what do we need to know? What do my listeners need to know? What piece of guidance do I need to know? So I feel like I haven't pulled a card in a while, even though it's only been 1 week. But I'm excited to see what we need to be aware of right now. Okay, very interesting. I pulled card 27, Home. You are comfortable in your own skin. You belong. Peace, security, safety, belonging, and all the features one would want from home are indicated now. The Home card represents an invitation to experience what it's like to be secure in your own skin, to live comfortably no matter what is happening in the world around you. It is a time for opening your eyes to your tribe of like-minded people or one special person who makes you feel like you've come home. Home is love, and love is all around you now. Whatever your inquiry, you are where you're meant to be and will reap great benefits by staying on this path, regardless of where it leads. Home will always be with you. It is where the heart is. Aw, such a nice card. And that's so nice because in a few weeks I get my new home. So, how fitting, interesting. I like that card. It's very feel-good vibes, I love this deck. If you want to see the card, I post it every Tuesday on Instagram. You can go over there and check it out. But I also know a lot of you have this deck. So if you have the deck and you want to see the card 27, go check it out. All right, so let's get into this week's episode. So I wanted to talk about what happens after we die. Where do we go? Do we reincarnate? And this is an interesting conversation, and I'm going to share what I know based on my experience, based on kind of my touches with the other side, with spirit, what I've gathered, things that kind of make sense to me. So I really do believe that when you die and your physical body stops working, that your soul does not die. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that we are a body and a soul kind of like connected as one. I do believe that they are two separate things and that one can exist without the other. So obviously the body can actually no, yeah, you need them to exist. So the body needs a soul to be alive, the soul needs a body to exist. And I really do believe this. I don't think that we just close our eyes and die and that's it. It doesn't make sense in my world. Also, with what connections I've had with spirit, it just seems like we are here to kind of support and move through lessons with others and be there for difficult times and be there for supportive times. So it's interesting when people think that kind of you die and you close your eyes and that's it. It's always like, well, no, there has to be more. And I do believe there is more. Something that I've read about, and I don't know too much about it, is about a soul family. And a soul family is that we kind of come back and we're around the same group of people over and over and over again. So we all reincarnate together, essentially, just different roles. So if you were a mother in one life, you might then be the child, or you might then be the husband, or you might then be the difficult boss. And that's why they say that the closest people to you are always teaching you your hardest lessons. So sometimes the Akashic Records people ask, where do I need to be learning lessons? Where should I be paying attention to learn the lessons I'm meant to be learning? And the Akasha always says, like, look to your closest, most difficult relationships, because usually that's something that you really need to heal in this lifetime before you move on, because it will affect how you reincarnate. So I know different religions touch on like how you reincarnate into a good life and all of these things. I'm not going to talk about that just because I'm unaware of that information, but something that I definitely believe is that we've done this before, and I think you can definitely experience that with people who have been around the block a few times, you know, the old souls versus the young souls. I really do believe that there's just those younger people who just get it, or those people who feel like it's their first time through life. No matter how old they get, they're kind of bambying through, you know, everything is new, everything is difficult, everything is hard. So I definitely believe that just in the personalities and the way that we're all living, there's definitely people who have done this many, many times, and then some souls who are still learning hard lessons going through life. But I think what's interesting to note is that the point of life, if we're really going to break it down, is lessons and experiences. And through these different lessons and experiences, we are being certain people, we are evolving, we are changing, and those around us in our relationships. So it's just really interesting to see how these relationships are shifting and changing through each lifetime. So I believe, yes, that we reincarnate, we somehow come back to Earth with the same people around us. So that's why, you know, you meet people and you feel like you know them before. You're really close with certain people. You feel like a sister with some people. You have a very difficult time with others. Like, it just makes sense to me. So I was explained this, and I think I've talked about it before on the podcast. It's a theory that your soul family kind of waits for you, right? So if you all have soul families, you kind of wait for everyone to pass, you support each other through their life, and then you all reincarnate together. I know that there's other beliefs that think that you can like reincarnate in the same lifetime, like I can still be alive and someone in my soul family reincarnates. I think that can happen where someone dies earlier in life so they could come back with their family and, you know, still be a part of their life here, almost get like 2 turns in one run. And then everyone passes again together and does it over. But there is a reason why this is happening. So I think it's very interesting. And then I also think in terms of mediumship, this makes sense because I've never spoken to anyone further than 2 generations away. But then after that, I've never connected with a soul. And even on all the mediumship shows that I've seen, or, you know, other readings that I've heard of, I've never heard of someone going like 3 generations out. So I just believe by that time, those people have already either reincarnated or they've done the work that they needed to do, so they don't need to speak anymore. Whereas like usually you're going within 2 generations of being passed from you. So it's either kind of your mother and father, your grandma and grandpa, or or that's it kind of thing. We're going up twice. So it's interesting based on who's alive, who they're gonna have to connect to. I also think about what is relevant and what is not relevant and what information needs to come through and what's actually helpful. Is your great 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 grandma coming through very helpful? Can she offer you any insight? Do you even recognize her? Do you know who she is? Will any information coming through resonate? Probably not, so that's not helpful. If your grandma came through, is that helpful information? Would you know who she was? Would you be able to recognize the messages? Yes, of course. So it's also in terms of like, what do we need now and what's also supportive, because spirit's not going to come through for, I don't want to say no reason, but they come through with a purpose and they come through with a message. So if the message isn't going to land, or if you're not going to understand the message, then kind of what's the point? And this is why I really resonate with that, you could say maybe theory of reincarnation, that we have this soul family, we all kind of wait for each other, we all help each other learn lessons, we go through it, and then we decide who's doing what in the next lifetime, and we come back to learn it all again. So it's interesting. Even when I did my past life regression, I did a whole episode on that if you want to listen to it, if you haven't already. Seeing those people that are in my life, that have been in my life in multiple lifetimes. So my mom was there, my brother was there, I had a cousin, and I had one of my very, very good friends. And it's interesting because my cousin and my very good friend now in this lifetime, they're like almost the two people in my whole entire life that I can tolerate the most, in that like we could spend weeks together and I wouldn't get sick of them. We could spend endless times on the phone and have forever things to talk about. And they're probably only the two people on earth that I could do that with. So it's interesting that they both came up in my past life regressions, because I'm like, of course I've known these people before. Like, of course I've been connected with you before. There's no way we could create the bond that we have in this lifetime just in one lifetime, or just in the few years that I've known you, or just in the few years that we've been connected. So for me, it just makes sense. But kind of on this topic, and I know I talked about this last week, my perspective is based on my experiences, right? And I do have the privilege of being able to connect with spirit, and I do have the experience of mediumship and development, and I work in energy a lot, and I'm kind of in this world and in this conversation, and I have access to kind of different conversations with different people who also have different experiences. So I think in regards to reincarnation, I totally respect everyone having a different point of view, because based on your experience, I think there is a different point of view. And of course, based on religion, there's going to be a different point of view. So do I believe there's a right and a wrong? No, I believe we all have our own understandings and our own beliefs for a reason. And I also think that just like religion, everyone's going to have a different belief system or a different understanding, and that's what works for them. So I think when you're thinking about reincarnation or what happens after we die, or do we have a soul, I really like to think of it as like souls. Spirits are souls, we are souls. I know I always say to my Reiki students, hello, beautiful souls. You're like acknowledging the inner being. You're not just your body. And I like to think of it as like when you close your eyes and go to sleep, and your body's sleeping, like, are you still you? And I believe like, yes, like I'm still me without my body. I'm still me without the physical stuff. And that's kind of the piece of reincarnation that really sits with me, is the element of soul versus body. That's a song. Soul versus body. Isn't it? Isn't it? Okay, maybe not. Anyways, this really connects with me, as like we are separate from just our bodies. We are not just our bodies. And I really do believe that. I believe we're souls. And if we're souls, then I believe that we are more than our bodies. So we must be able to live on. We must be able to still connect when we leave our bodies. So that's why I think spirit can talk to us, is because they're still here. They don't go anywhere. They just lose their bodies, but their soul doesn't go anywhere. So this really makes sense to me, right? And this is kind of how I'm like, yeah, I can talk to dead people because their soul is still here. They just don't have a body. It's almost like they're naked. And that's how I've wrapped it around my rational brain. And for me, it works. So I would really encourage you to kind of think of your own belief systems. Think of the experiences that you've had. Think of what you believe or don't believe. Think of what makes sense in your mind, and come to your belief systems that way, because again, we don't all have to believe in the same things. I think we all have beautiful, unique minds that are going to have different perspectives, and I think that's beautiful. I can respect someone else's opinion. I don't think we should all think or act the same. That would be a very boring life. But yeah, consider what your beliefs are. Consider what you think about this, because this is my perspective as a developing medium, as someone who's been in the energy world for a few years now. And from my experience, this really makes sense for me. So that's kind of my perspective of it. And when this question came up a few weeks ago, I was like, I could long form talk about this because I think it's an interesting topic. And I think soul versus body is also very, very interesting. And thinking about like who you are without your physical form. And this is even something you can consider when you're describing yourself or you're talking about yourself. It's like all of those things, you are you without your body still, your personality traits, who you are, what you like, what you don't like, how you act, the lessons you've learned is all happening to your soul, not necessarily your body. So very interesting topic. I think that I always like to have this conversation with people because it's not like an angry topic or a heated topic. I don't find people are very defensive about this, but it's like, hey, what do you think about soul versus body? What do you think happens after you die? What do you think about the afterlife? And it's very interesting, everyone's perspective, but I think it gives people purpose in life to continue on and to kind of understand that, oh, when my body dies, I don't end. Like this doesn't end. The lessons don't end. And that greater consciousness, that greater awareness is something that we're all a part of. And we return to it. But then it's just like this cycle of continuing and continuing, of evolving and evolving. And I know I've mentioned this before in other podcasts, but it's interesting. I was talking to Lois, my Reiki master, and she said to me, she was very, very self-aware in that she's like, Steph, I'm on one of my last lives. She's like, if I'm not on my last life now, she's like, my next life will be my last life. She's like, I know that I'm going to be ascending. I know that I've done what I needed to do. I know I've learned the lessons that I've needed to do. Like I'm kind of done here. She's like, so I might come back one more time just to help others one more time. And she's like, but I feel like I've experienced the human experience and I'm kind of done now. So that's also an interesting perspective of like, when are we done? When do we finish the cycle? When do we kind of go back to source, being, creator, whatever you want to say, and then return back to that consciousness before we come out? And I think that also makes sense because this explains why there's new souls. This makes sense why you do see people who struggle their whole life, who are just like Bambi, walking through. Everything's new. Everything's a struggle. Everything's exciting. Everything's literally, it's just like you're staying a young soul. So it's very interesting when we get into this. I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours about it. I just don't have the knowledge or the experience with it about new souls, young souls. I feel like I always say I'm like a middle-aged soul. I'm still kind of new, but I've done this before and I have the knowledge, but I still have a lot to learn. And I know I still have many lifetimes to go through, but I definitely feel like I've done this before. I definitely feel like I have knowledge to share. I definitely know I've walked this earth before in many different ways and forms and beings. I know I've been a man before many times just through my experiences and just through things that have happened, which is why past life regressions are so cool, because you can get insight into who you are, who you're being, what you experience, what are your traits, what are your habits. So if you haven't experienced that and you're interested, go check it out because I feel like it's very informative for you. My mom's always like, why do you want to do that? I'm like, it's just insight into myself, things that I can maybe learn about myself, things that can help me. And I really learned from that experience that I need to pay attention to my relationships. I need to invest time into my relationships. I need to be mindful of my friendships. And since that reading, it's literally been top of mind. I'm always like, no, I need to be putting effort into my relationships. So, just even getting better at texting friends and making plans and reaching out. Usually I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm the kind of person, you text me and I'll text you back, but I'm not the kind of person to be like, hey, how are you? How's your day? I don't have time. Not that I don't have time for that, but it's not a priority in my life. So it's interesting that now I'm like, no, I need to make that a priority in my life. I've learned through past lives that I kind of let relationships die. I don't put in the effort. I don't put in the time. So that's helpful for me in this lifetime if I want to change it, right? It's all about your free will. You still get choice. You still get yes or no. Like that's all there. So that's my perspective. That's my point of view that I wanted to kind of talk about because I do think this is interesting. And I think it leads to a lot of interesting conversations, like I said, because everybody's experience is different. So I'd be interested to hear what you think. I'll probably post a poll on Instagram just to get what other people's view are of the afterlife and reincarnation and what happens after we die and soul versus body. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, come over there at Medium in the Middle and on Facebook. If you are an iTunes user, I would love and appreciate a rating and a review. It really helps me out in the podcast world. And we are hitting 2 years next week. Holy cow. I'm excited for that episode. It's going to be a little walk down memory lane, but very exciting. If you do want to book an appointment with me, I offer distance Reiki, Akashic record readings, and Psych K appointments. Psych K has been very, very popular the last 3 weeks. Very cool. Love, love, love that you guys are eating up Psych K. Change your belief systems. It's amazing. Your limiting beliefs, anything that you want to alter. So fun. If you want to book an appointment with me, link is down below or on my website, themediuminthemiddle.com. I have limited appointments for August because I'm taking the last 2 weeks off to move and do renovations. Those are all offered virtually, but if you are in Banff, Alberta, come see me in person. I also offer in-person Reiki. We can do all those things in person. So that is also available to book online. All the links are down below in the show notes. Thank you for listening, Middlers. If you haven't already, please press that subscribe button. I release new episodes every Tuesday, and I will pop right up in your library. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something. I hope it sparked something in you to figure out what your beliefs are. And I will see you next week for the anniversary episode. Of course, in your ears, not with my eyes, but you get the point, Middlers. It's been fun. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Have a great week. Bye.